like a pocket window, like a pocket door.
So it slips into the wall?
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Does that exist?
It does exist.
No, it doesn't.
There's at least one company that makes these things.
I'm sure they're inexpensive.
I'm sure they don't cost that much. You're going to be paying in
Come on.
euro, I believe.
Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding podcast, our weekly discussion of building, remodeling, and design topics aimed at anybody who cares deeply about the craft and science of working on houses. This is Senior Editor Patrick McComb. I'm joined by Associate Editor Matt Milham.
Hello.
Kiley Jacques.
Hello.
Design Editor. And Producer Jeff Rose.
Hello.
Please email us your questions at fhbpodcast@taunton.com. You can find previous podcasts and check out the show notes at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. So we had a little feedback about the dormer discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember
the Flying Nun?
Do you remember the dormer?
I do. I was here for that too.
So that was the shed porch roof with the triple dormer with then the Flying Nun dormer on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
And Doug wrote in to say, the blue dormer wonderland is what he described it as, which I think is kind of fun. Although I agree with all the comments made, it did bring to mind something my barber said many decades ago. There was something he liked and that I didn't like, and he said, that's why they make red cars and blue cars and brown cars and green cars. There is something for everyone's taste, which is good to be reminded of, right?
Yeah.
The thing was still ugly. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of tastes, and some of it is bad.
Right.
To each their own, though. That's a valid point.
Totally. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't like when people criticize my bad taste. So
Yeah.
Fair enough.
your woodshed is done, right?
It's complete.
What does it look like?
Empty. There it is.
You are so adorable in that photo. I
was pretty happy. That was moments after the final screw went in, so I was excited.
It's a woodshed in that it's made out of wood,
Yes.
but it doesn't have any wood in it yet.
Precisely.
It looks a lot like a lean-to on the Adirondack Trail. Is that by coincidence, or is it because it's an efficient shape?
It's the efficient shape. The whole idea is that, Rob constructed that by himself single-handedly. I didn't help much at all except for laying in the concrete piers there. So his whole design concept is that it's super simple. He used one tool the entire time.
What? A circular saw?
A circular saw, yeah, for cutting the wood, obviously, but
The impact driver.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was it.
Those two tools are really all you need to be a carpenter, and generally.
So
let's do some dirt. How did he do? Did he make any mistakes? Was he cussing? Was he losing his mind?
he put the bracing on the wrong. Let's see, what was the thing? Yeah, it was the brace bar.
And you tormented him, I hope.
He put it in three
on, Rob, I thought you were a pro.
before he figured out where he really needed it and wanted it. And he was like, it's just the little details like this that I really screw up regularly. No, it was a real pleasure to watch him work, though. I learned a lot.
Is he efficient?
Very.
Yeah?
He did that. We ran out of light, so we
that's a
worked
problem.
all Thursday and then a couple hours in the afternoon on Friday.
Okay.
So it probably took him about maybe 9 hours to complete.
Yeah.
Would you say that your photography slowed him down?
Yes, for sure.
Okay, so it wouldn't have taken him that long, probably a day, right?
Yeah, that's true.
We always
looks
slow
great.
everybody down.
What's that?
We always slow everybody down.
Yes.
Yeah.
I pride myself on doing that minimally, but yeah, inevitably you're going to slow someone down.
Yeah,
At least
Well, it
try
was
to.
nice
as
to
well.
work with Rob because he understands both sides of it. You know.
He didn't get annoyed and say, I really need to finish this.
No, he's like, you should probably get a shot of me doing this.
Yeah, he's probably like, keep us out of the office as long as possible. I could have knocked this out in an hour.
I've gotten a lot of compliments on it from my neighbors.
Really? Maybe he's got a little
It's a
business
nice
going
addition
there.
to my property.
He could have that in addition to his bike plow business. And you have other stuff going on too. You're talking about working on your other shed. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'd love your opinion. Rob and I were actually
What's wrong
talking
with
about it. Take a look. Well, it's just rotting plywood,
Yeah.
right?
So
And
is it made of plywood or
it's
is it a
made
wood
of
frame inside?
There's a bit of wood frame, but it's mostly plywood. Yeah. It's got, rafters, 2x4 rafters.
And an octagonal window in the gable.
Which makes no sense.
And it doesn't look to be flashed.
Yeah, the whole thing is just, right?
So what are you asking? How you should tear it down?
Well, if it should be torn down. Rob thinks, Justin was like, get rid of that. But
Yeah.
Rob suggests that I just,
He likes
sheathe it.
He likes junk.
Yeah.
I would point out.
It's true, but the floor is solid.
Well, then maybe start there.
Yeah, I'm feeling like I just want to cover the entire thing
I think a shed should
in
have
corrugated metal.
Wow, that's a bold choice. So, have you lived with that look? It's blinding.
It
right?
is blinding.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm learning that from the roof on the woodshed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would consider that like maybe a trellis in front of it if you're going to do that.
So,
I
what
think
would you guys do?
I
Just
think, I
rip
think
it
a shed
down?
should have a concrete floor. Don't you?
I don't feel strongly about that. Why?
Depends what you have in it.
It's just
Well, I
gardening
used to have
tools.
motorcycles and like table saws in mine.
No,
so
I don't have any kind
yeah,
of weighted thing like that. I've just got gardening tools.
like the cabinet saw on the dirt was really
Yeah, that'd be a problem.
a problem.
Mostly for the saw.
It was not good for the saw. It wasn't good for my back.
Yeah.
So, but if that's not a concern, I think a dirt floor is fine.
It's not dirt. It's plywood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's solid. I had him come in and take a look.
So it's not just like plywood laid on the ground.
Light on the dirt.
No,
It's got framing
it's got
under it.
framing under
Okay.
it.
Oh,
yeah,
that's cool.
yeah. So really, I think it's the siding that needs to be
So
replaced.
have you thought about putting cedar shingles on it? Because I think that is a fantastic look, and you could probably nail it right to the existing sheathing and patch what you need to.
That's an idea.
It's expensive.
I was going to say that sounds expensive.
It's
though.
like probably minimum $300 a square, which is 10 by 10.
That's never going to happen.
What do you think?
Yeah, if this was
I don't
yours,
know.
Matt, what would you
I'd
do
have
with
to
it?
check out the condition first because I don't know. It's
You can
the
see
minimal framing.
It's rotting on the base.
Yeah.
That's pretty much.
I mean,
I can
that's-
tell you, if you're spending like more than an hour or two patching like something this small, like all right, it's got to go. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably measure 4 feet up, cut off the sheathing on the entire bottom of the
It
structure.
looks kinda
and
punky
resheath
on the
it.
bottom.
Yeah, it looks
Yeah, it's
punky on the
definitely
bottom. And maybe you don't even need to do 4 feet. Maybe you only need to do
or
a
a
foot or
foot.
two.
Yeah.
And then you can cut strips and attach
That's where the
that
skunks
and-
go in. So that would be a good idea.
Yeah. Well, you're going to have all kinds of skunks and porcupines probably hanging out in your woodshed if it's anything like an Adirondack lean-to because they love to hang out in those things.
I thought about sleeping in there that night when it was done. I thought some creepy crawly thing is going to get him
Oh, yeah.
get up
Yeah.
in there with me.
Or your neighbors will come and like knocking on it in the morning. Good morning.
Yeah.
There's a homeless person in your shed.
Yeah. The guy
No,
from
it's
across
just
the
me.
river is going to come over and try to have some beers with you.
Right.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, I don't need him in my life.
And then you're washing your siding or your
Yeah, I'm going to try that product that you suggested.
the spray and forget.
Right, for
Okay.
the algae. And then I've got to figure out something for the moss on the pediment. Shingled
The what?
the pediment above my door.
Okay.
There's, asphalt shingles covered in thick moss. I'll probably just scrape that to start. But the thing
It
that
does pull the granules off the shingles.
I
I've
know.
found like the moss really kind of grabs onto them.
I did it on that for homeowners insurance purposes. I had to get the same kind of moss off of the shed roof.
Really?
Did it with a rake. Scraped it.
So did your insurance company come and look at the house, or were they looking at photos, or what?
It was photos, and yeah, they wouldn't seal the deal with me until I got that shed roof cleaned off.
You need to learn Photoshop.
I know.
You could
I
save
wonder
yourself
what
a lot of
I wonder what
hassle.
the issue is with them.
I'm not sure.
Did she tell? Did they tell you?
No, I said actually I'm going to tear that down. I thought I would do it sooner than I did, than I probably will. But yeah, they said you need to clean that up.
Huh.
It's a hazard. I don't know why it would be.
Yeah.
Like the roof.
Moss is going around.
Yeah, it's
No.
terrorizing
In terms
people.
of the structure's stability, they seem to think it was, going to rot. I don't know.
The
mean, that's the
insurance
only-
industry never ceases to confuse me. So
Yeah, they were just trying to get some extra money out
Yeah.
of you, seeing what they could get you to do.
Right.
you're gonna need that moss waiver.
Yeah.
It took me 3 hours to do it because I didn't want
How'd you a broom?
a combination of a plastic rake and a broom
Cool.
and a ladder.
Did you walk up there?
No, that's what I was afraid of. That's why it took so long. It would have gone faster if I felt safe getting up on top of the roof, but I didn't.
I don't know if I would climb on that
Exactly.
structure.
Well, I
Yeah.
just that might help you assess whether or not it should be knocked down or
Rebuilt.
saved.
True. If I fall through, out it goes. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you should build a shed.
I think that I would like to do that with you guys.
Because like the thing is, a shed has all the elements of an entire house, really. You're building walls, you're framing a roof, you're siding, you probably want a window and a door.
Yeah.
At least a door.
Right? If you want to get into it. Or you can just build it around
I don't think
yourself.
I want to get into it at all.
Build it around yourself with a bunch of canned food and just live in there for the rest of your life.
Kaczynski style.
Yeah.
And
I
then there's
watched that documentary.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was a weird story.
The
Well, it was like
the series?
the
or whatever?
series on Netflix.
Yeah. That was great.
That guy is like wing nut. So, and then you have some rust stains you're trying to deal with.
Yeah. Rob gave me a
Is that
suggestion.
flashing related?
You can see there.
I'm not supposed to
Oh, you're
turn
not
around.
supposed to turn around. I forgot.
It's coming off some kind of bracket or something.
Yeah,
Looks
it's for the
The
Wood
chimney
stove.
flue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those can't go away, so I just need to. I'm not sure what to do.
What amazes me about this product in particular, so Kiley has this like transition. It's an elbow, right? A clean out at the bottom of the chimney, and it connects to the inside and then transitions to the vertical chimney going on the outside of the building. And like every time I see one of these things, they're always rusting and staining the building. And like, why isn't it made out of stainless steel?
Right.
It would cost
Yeah.
$20, $30 more to make it out of that.
Do you think that I should add some copper pieces? Would that stop it from?
Probably wouldn't stop it. Then you get probably some kind of galvanic reaction that would probably make it worse.
Oh, okay.
It
not
might
sure
kill
what to do.
the moss on the porch roof.
Yeah,
though.
that's true.
So I'm going to use a magic. What's that?
The
product?
magic eraser?
A magic eraser.
Yeah.
I'm getting up
everybody
there
makes
this
those
weekend.
now.
Yeah.
They
They're
do?
great. Yeah, I mean, you can get like knockoff, like, store brand ones.
What's it called?
Just a magic eraser? I don't know
Yeah.
what they. I don't know what the
I bet
spec-
it's
the
not.
store
I
brand.
bet it's called like
It's a Mr. Clean
super
product.
scrubber.
No, it's called a magic eraser.
The magic eraser from
Mr.
Mr. Clean,
Clean.
and then there's I don't know what the store brands. They probably all have their own little term for them, but it's exactly the same thing. I'm sure they're probably made in the same factory.
What is the attribute of this thing? I've heard about them, but never used one.
They just seem to clean everything off of everything without damaging it.
Really?
And they're
Yeah.
not. It's not some horrible chemical laden product.
That's what they tell you.
That's what Rob said.
Kind of a weird.
That's what
I,
Rob said.
I haven't seen the ingredient list
Yeah,
yet.
it doesn't really retain its shape. Like if you squeeze it, it'll kind of stay squeezed.
That's good to know.
Yeah, like they do fall apart relatively quickly, so you'll go
Okay.
through them pretty fast
I'll
if
get
you're
like
not like
15
real
pack
gentle
or
with it.
something.
Is this
Yeah.
expensive?
Not
No,
really.
they're cheap.
Wow.
I ordered it.
I got to think
Yeah.
of something to do with this.
They're great. I mean, you can clean your walls with it. I mean, you'd be surprised how much junk is on your walls.
Yeah.
I don't really
In my
want to know,
kitchen-
do I?
Yeah, no, but in my kitchen, I don't have a range hood. And,
Yeah,
there was
same.
one spot that was a little grimy, above the stove. So I
Oily.
started cleaning that. And then you realize, oh, this goes
Maybe
way
I
farther than I
Have
thought.
to do the rest.
Yeah, but
That's why I try not to get involved in those kind of projects.
yeah.
Always
Magic
end
Eraser
up-
does it, though.
Good.
All right.
I'm glad to know that.
CLR. Put some CLR in there, too. Calcium lime
Now,
rust.
that product I've used, and I can say it works very well for
Yeah.
rust stains.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know what he's talking about?
No.
Calcium lime rust is CLR, and it comes in a green bottle, and it's probably very toxic acid, but I tell you, if you have rust stains, it will take them off. Almost anything.
Yeah.
It smells toxic, though.
That's my plan B.
It smells like really strong
Acid.
citric acid or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
It's got an acid smell.
Does it burn your skin?
I don't know.
Probably. What have you been doing?
Working very slowly on that shed. I don't have any updates really. It's
Okay.
Been
just-
raining.
Yeah, it's been raining nonstop. So
Did you get the roof sheathing on yet?
on about half of what's going to be sheathed, yeah. And I ordered the
How are you getting
FRP.
that up there?
Just kind of
Just pulling it up.
there.
So you
Yeah.
lean it against the eave and then pull it up?
I'm just carrying it up the ladder. It's not that high. It's like 8 feet. Mm-hmm. And then I can just lay it up there. But
And
I
how
have
do
to
you-
cut it. So, I'm just measuring and, breaking the seams on a rafter. Because it's like 9 feet. So a whole sheet won't cover.
Sounds
So how big are the pieces that
Fussy.
you're hauling up there?
Like, not that big, like 4 by 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you make it line up at the eave
I just tacked some stuff up there
onto
with a
the-
spacer so that
onto the plumb cut of your rafter?
onto the subfascia so that it would just hold it. So I can just throw the sheets
Yeah.
up there and it just.
That's what I
kinda
like to
holds
do
it there.
too.
Yeah.
Because having them slide off is really
Yeah.
demoralizing, especially when it hits a coworker.
Yeah.
Does Heather help you with that?
No. but mostly because I want to do it myself. So that's probably why. And she's also got the garden project.
What's she doing?
She right next to it. That's part of why it's difficult to work on it, especially when it's raining. We've got, like 3 tons of compost next to the thing now, which I have to traipse through to get to the thing. So every
That's because she loves you.
Yeah. So I got to walk through this stuff to get to the top of the shed, basically to get on the roof. And then I'm just tracking this stuff all around the top plates, and it looks like
Too bad
what
the
it is.
mound wasn't tall enough. You could just climb the mound onto the plates.
Yeah, I got to next time. Next time I'll just mound it up.
All right. Well, you'll keep posted on that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So our first question comes from Dave from Plainfield, Vermont. Question: I'm interested in hearing all you take on contractor ethics. Period. Contractors don't always have the best rep as ethical folk, and I'm sure there are bad actors out there. For extra sure, there are a lot more of us trying our level best. Pun may be intended to do what is right and do great work. Of course, there's legality, but I'm not as interested in that as I am simply being an ethical person and doing what is fair and just for my clients. Sometimes that means I take a bit of a hit. Sometimes it means I hold firm and stick up for myself. It's a fine line, to be sure. What do you think? So I'm first going to ask, what is this guy talking about? What do you think he's talking about?
Well, it's actually put me in mind of a book I'm reading right now.
Okay.
It's called House. It's by Tracy Kidder. It's a bit dated, but it's the coming together of an architect, homeowners, and the builders. It's a small group, a small company called Apple Corps. I don't think they're in existence anymore, but...
Oh, they're huge.
No, they're not.
No. Apple? It's
Apple
big.
Corps.
No, I'm just kidding.
It's tiny. It's a like backwoods, hilly town. Group of carpenters. I think there's 5 total, but they're craftsmen, and they're anyway. Point being that there was a point at which when they were bidding, there was a figure of $660 that got in the way of everything because it was a matter of principle, and the builders ended up eating it, and it keeps coming up as an issue. So it's a point of contention. And
so what happened? So there's this cost that nobody anticipated?
Right, and who's going to absorb it? And it turned out to be that they wanted the job, and it just is sort of the same thing that he's suggesting. Like, do I eat it just to keep people happy, or which is what they chose to do? But it's kind of always gnawing at them.
Sure.
Why was I made to take, the hit?
Mm-hmm.
So it just made me think of that.
In a more basic context, whereas like you do half-baked work or your subcontractor does and you don't fix it. You just close up the walls and leave whatever anomaly present without telling anybody, for example. Or you're working on something and you find a bunch of rot, and rather than having a difficult conversation with the client, be like, look, we really need to fix this, you just put new siding on it and go about your business and collect your check. Yeah. So I'm not really sure what he's talking about. What do you think he means?
I wasn't 100% sure. So, I'm just kind of like, do the best work that you can. And you should not be cutting corners. Like anybody, if there's a corner that's to be cut, that should be the client's
decision.
Decision.
But what about if you find something and you can't get them to pay? What is your obligation? What if it's unsafe?
I think that at some point you have to be willing to stand up for your own craftsmanship and values and tell somebody who wants to cut corners, I'm not the hack you're looking for.
Right.
Uh-huh. So does that mean you walk off the job and know that this person's house is? What is? It's a hard thing to fix.
If you're already in a contract, then you may be stuck. But I would say you have to really vet your clients before you take on a job, and make sure that, because clients aren't always ethical. Like they're looking for ways to take advantage of you sometimes. Not everybody, but
sure. Or they're looking to hide things. Do we really need to fix this? I'm trying to sell this house. I just want to get it to a point where no one's going to notice.
Right.
And I would say don't take that job.
Yeah.
That's easy. But once you get into something, that's a harder thing.
Because if you value your work, then you don't want to cut those corners.
No, right.
Right.
So.
And your clients, right?
Yeah.
I think there's an obligation to do what's best for them. If you're an ethical business person, that's your job, is to fix things for them, not create problems.
This is why getting to know people up front a little bit matters.
I mean, as far as pre-qualifying your clients,
Right.
yeah. And I'd say the same is true from your
And
contractor.
I was going to say, and
Yeah.
also letting them know what kind of work you anticipate doing, that you're not going to be somebody who cuts corners, and you're not going to be comfortable doing that.
I think the perception that Dave identifies is correct. I've seen surveys that put home remodeling contractors on a pretty much equal footing with used car salespeople. So there's definitely a distrust of the industry because of bad actors.
Yeah.
And those are the things
Do you think
hear
they're
about.
the majority?
I don't, but I think they're the ones you hear about. If someone does a really good job on your project, you're happy.
Right.
You tell your friends and people you know, like, I found this good contract, you did a good job, it was fair. But if you have a problem, then you're on social media and you're yelling a lot louder.
But people also may just not like contractors because the jobs are expensive and they're not always for things that you can really see. So you're
Yeah.
spending a lot of money for stuff that's hidden inside a wall.
Right. Or in the ground.
Yeah.
I totally agree. And I think people generally think that contractors are getting rich, and I also think that is not true. I've heard many contractors, and we work with the best of the best, and they say, I can't afford my own work, which I find to be a troubling reality of the industry.
Right. It's like working at Foxconn, like all these people putting together iPhones and they can't buy one.
Right. Yeah. I can't afford my own work. That's I've heard that more than once, and I'm just like, boy, that's really a shame.
Yeah.
So charge more. Do you think we helped?
I don't know.
I
There's
have
different
no-
ways to interpret that question.
Yeah, it was a little too vague for me.
So Dave, this was his second try at this question. And he discussed in an earlier question having to do work that was not up to his standards because of the GC's wishes and cheapness. And he was troubled by this. Like, I'm obligated to do this work, but I wouldn't want this in my house, or I wouldn't do it for my direct customer. So,
I mean, you don't want to necessarily do an end around, but go to the homeowner and tell them what the GC is trying to pull.
I think especially when you show people, like, look, this is a problem. This is, and you show them this is how it's supposed to be. This is what you have. I think there's a better chance of having them do the right thing.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
force their GC to do the right thing.
Yeah.
This is question comes from Corey and Megan in Roanoke. Hello, FHB team. I loved your podcast and truly believe you bring all kinds of helpful things to the table. My wife and I are about to start on a kitchen remodel for a house we moved into 6 months ago. We've worked with a general contractor and a designer to ensure our kitchen is truly a functional space, as we both like to cook, as do our kids. We're doing the full 9 yards, moving walls to optimize the space, relocating the sink and island, new cabinets and appliances. I'd like your input on the following. We have a triple bank of windows that we found were racked during the home inspection, so they're being replaced during this renovation. During this project, we plan to add a screen porch with a bar-type seating on the inside and outside of this window, so when the windows are open, there's a pass-through to the porch. Casement windows will cause issues when swung out, and looking for your opinions on either an accordion-type window that folds onto itself when open, or a window that looks like a traditional double hung but swings up like the ones made by the fold-up window company. It appears that the fold-up version can be quite wide and can fold either in or out. Obviously looking for a window that's strong over time, easy to open and close, and energy efficient. Would love to hear your thoughts, or maybe you have other options we should consider. I'm going to let you guys dive into this first.
Well, my first thought was like a pocket window, like a pocket door.
So it slips into the wall?
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Does that exist?
It does exist.
No, it
There's
doesn't.
at least one company that makes these things.
I'm
And
sure they're
Italian-
inexpensive.
I'm sure they don't cost that much. You're going to be paying in
Come on.
euro, I believe. I think it's an Italian company called ProTech, and I imagine there's got to be other people out there who make similar products. But to me, it seems like a great idea.
I think a good millwork company could make this for you, but I
Yeah.
don't think it would be inexpensive.
No, it probably wouldn't be cheap. So
that's cool. So you have a pocket window, and maybe there's multiple sash that stack up in one end or the other, or one in each, or
yeah, I think they have different designs, but the one that I've got here basically just slides out to either side and,
I think that's very
disappears inside the wall.
cool. And you?
I put this question to my stepsister and her husband, who have a few houses in southern Maine, and they've used the NanoWall system, both the walls and.
Can you tell folks what that is? I'm familiar, but I bet there's a lot of people who are not.
Right. So it's sort of like an accordion style sliding door. Here's an example. I know you're not supposed to look. So they've used the pass-through windows and have some feedback on it. They're really happy with it. They said that they feel like the price differential is not that much more than
Do you know what
quality.
they paid for the window version of this?
I didn't get into that.
But it's thousands, right?
It's very expensive, but as they pointed out, if you're going to use quality windows, it's not that much more, and you're getting this added attribute.
Oh, yeah. And especially if it's in your kitchen, you want it to be comfortable, right? You spend a lot of time there.
But you could also use like European-style tilt turns that open in, and then it's not going to open over your counter and cause a problem. As long as opening in over your sink or whatever isn't going to be an issue.
Well, so they're talking about a breakfast bar on the inside. So, yeah, that'll go. But, like, if you have plates and all your stuff on the table and then you decide you want to open the window, you're going to have to move all that stuff, right?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I don't know what exactly their setup is going to be because this counter is going to be on the outside, right?
Both.
Both sides are going to have, that just seems...
Yeah, too many countertops,
too many counters, yeah.
That's great.
Make them
Especially
real
if the
deep.
sink's right there,
I think
which is
that'd be a cool
common.
feature.
Yeah. They did say that they've done both ways. They've had their local contractor install them, and they've also had Nana's, specialists install them, and they definitely recommend the latter.
So my understanding is Nana wants to do their own installations with their own people because it is not an easy thing to make work correctly. It takes some specialized knowledge.
Yeah.
And they're very unforgiving with out-of-square conditions, which would have me concerned with the structural problems that this space had that led them to need to replace these to begin with. So in any case, you should see what's going on, why the windows were racked. If it's a structural concern, fix that before you put new windows in, I would say.
Yeah.
And apparently they float over from Germany and take a very long time to get here. So you might want to consider that in advance.
I didn't realize that was a German product. I thought that was California. Oh, interesting. So I have a suggestion. I didn't tell you guys this, but so yesterday was a pretty nice day. So I did what I sometimes do. I went to the Ferris Creamery for lunch, which is a handmade ice cream store on Route 302 on the way to Bethel, Connecticut.
I thought you said you were working from home.
This counts as work.
I was here yesterday, but I did go out. And I did get Caltrax ice cream, which is the very best. Anyway, they have sliding windows like every other ice cream store, right? Or stand. And those are way less expensive, right? And you could get a few of them. And I think that would be an ideal solution if you needed to save some dough.
You think they'd look sort of commercial, though?
No, I have sliding windows in my barn. Residential window manufacturers all just about have a sliding window. You can get super cheap vinyl ones, or you can get wood sash, nice windows too. But the problem with that is you only end up with half of the opening at open. If you want it completely wide open, that's not a solution.
I think that's the idea.
Yeah. Imagine I would come up with a cheap solution.
In terms of the energy efficiency, though, I did look on Green Building Advisor, and Martin Holliday stood corrected at one point because somebody was saying they're not at all any energy efficient, and he looked into it a little bit more, and he said they're much more energy efficient than I thought.
I've been led to believe too that the folding window walls are energy inefficient too, and I know they have higher amounts of air leakage than other types of windows.
Sure.
But
they're not as bad as apparently people claim.
I was on an install for one of those, and they're a beautiful product, and it sure makes a nice space. Like if you're talking about seamless transitions between inside and outside, that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's for the doors anyway, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw a combination of the doors and the window that they're talking about. It's pretty sweet.
They can fold or they can stack. Like you can have them both ways, and they can be biparting, which means they open in the center, or they can move from one end to the other. It's pretty cool stuff, and you can have them electrically controlled now, as I understand it, which would be even more jaw dropping to show your friends. Which is the whole reason to do this anyway, right?
Yeah, just show off how much money you have. It's got remote control doors.
Oh, I think we should open up the doors, don't
Hey
you,
Siri,
honey?
open my doors.
Oh, right. That's a whole new level of complexity.
Oh no, bats! Siri, close the doors.
We'll be right back with more after this. The Fine Homebuilding podcast is also brought to you by DeckWise. Does your hardwood deck need a makeover? Bring back the luster of the day it was first installed. Let DeckWise reverse time and erase its dullness to make the wood grains burst with natural beauty again. Start with our wood cleaner and brightener and finish with our eco-friendly water-based formula, Wise Coat, or our low VOC Ipe oil hardwood finish. Protect and preserve your deck to keep it looking brand new this summer. For more info on these products, visit deckwise.com. Next question. Hi, Fine Home Builders. I'm a fan of the show. I just left a raving review. Thank you very much for that. I'm fairly new to the construction field and have been using my skills to improve my 1900 farmhouse in New York's Hudson Valley. Wonder if he's close to you.
Probably.
See what he's got going on.
Yeah, man. I've purchased gable end vents to install in my currently unvented attic. Fiberglass insulation is between the attic floor joists, but putting the vents in requires cutting through brittle asbestos shingles siding. Is there a method for doing this without destroying the shingles? And could you please review the health and safety precautions for dealing with this material? I think we should talk about putting in these vents first. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
This is not my department. I'm the design editor.
This doesn't work. This is not going to do anything.
It's not going to be. Yeah, I mean, unless these vents are going to take up like the entire gable end. I don't know. I can't remember what the square foot requirements are for, like how many square foot of venting you need for whatever size attic. But I don't imagine they're going to be too small.
Yeah, and I honestly don't understand what people's motivation is to vent their attics. Like, it's really something that people go crazy about.
Yeah, it comes up all the time.
All the time. In fact, the Fine Homebuilding podcast was described the Fine Attic Venting podcast by some because of the many questions we've taken over the years.
Yeah.
But if there's not problems, why screw with it?
Well, because I imagine with a house like this, some problems may have been introduced. Like this house was probably not insulated at all to begin with, and now they've insulated the floor of the attic, and now they've got what could it possible issues. I don't know.
And if you have moisture accumulation in your attic, and there's a GBA story that's on this currently, Martin Holliday just wrote about it the past week. It's most likely that you're having significant air leakage and a wet basement. I mean, even air leakage alone is seldom enough to cause a problem because attics are hot, and because they're hot, they dry.
Well, they're hot in the summer.
They're hot in the summer.
But it's not in the winter.
Right, and the problem is in the winter, as you point out. So you get this condensing surface, you got these air leaks from the house, the moisture hits this cold surface, the roof sheathing, and makes a mess, mold at a minimum, and if it goes long enough, it rots the sheathing.
Right.
So what's your problem with venting?
So the solution is not to introduce more air to the attic. The solution is to seal that air barrier between the conditioned space, the living space on the second floor, the first floor, and the attic.
Yeah.
And that's what you do. So you're going to have to pull up the insulation and see all the holes. There's going to be gaps between, at the top plates, between partition walls and bearing walls. So you got to seal all that stuff up with taper foam. You got to seal around any penetrations. Plumbing stacks are notorious. Ductwork is horrible. And seal that barrier. And then, I don't know why you want to vent, but let's get into that.
Well, let's assume you want to do that.
Let's assume there's a good reason to do that.
I don't know
what that would be.
Working with asbestos, you can, owner occupied, if you're the owner and you occupy the house in New York State, you're allowed to do this work. But you can't, transport that stuff to the dump. You can't just, whatever you cut out, you can't just throw in the garbage.
What do you think you do with it?
You got to call in New York State. He's probably going to have to contact the DEC or on an authorized asbestos
is
contractor.
Is going to do that for three pieces of siding.
Right, to pick up this stuff and properly dispose of it. So, and if you get caught with it, you're probably going to get fined. I have no idea what the fines would be, but...
So once again, it's a reason to just leave this alone.
It's a reason to either leave it alone or not do the work yourself, because there are all kinds of hazards. I mean, as soon as you start moving, asbestos siding is generally fine as long as it's not friable, falling apart. You can just leave it alone. It's A-okay. But as soon as you start trying to mess with it. You
That's
know, if
the
you're,
problem.
If you're going to take your fine tool to this or whatever it is you're going to do.
I was going to suggest a grinder.
Yeah, I've seen people recommend using a grinder. Like, what are you doing?
That is not what to do, actually.
No.
In case there's any confusion, you don't take a grinder to your asbestos siding.
Yeah, you want to like basically be whatever tool is least destructive. I
Yes,
don't know,
and you're
like
supposed to cut wet to prevent the release of the particles, which are
Glass,
linked
right?
to.
Aren't they glass?
No, it's a mineral.
It's a mineral, yeah.
Okay.
And it's got little hooks on the mineral, and that's what gets it lodged in your
that's right.
lungs, and it's
Okay.
very tough to expel.
Yeah.
So you have to wear a respirator, and no cutting dry. Everything should be wetted. You should build up an enclosure because, as Matt suggests, you're not allowed to release the fibers or the material into the air, land, or water, which kind of limits.
Yeah.
There's no other options, right? Mm-hmm. It's either it's going somewhere.
Right.
So
So what kind of structure would you build to do that?
you have to make some kind
Like
of
an
plastic
enclosure?
enclosure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And ideally, it
And
has
you'd be standing in there.
with a respirator on, and you should have coveralls and gloves, and
Oh,
you
that
should.
sounds awful.
It's awful. It's like I don't know why anyone would want to do this. Maybe a ridge vent, if you're really wanting to ridge your attic, like you can cut
Yeah.
a slot in the ridge, and it's going to work better anyway. It's
Yeah,
been
well-
demonstrated to
Is
be
that
more
like the
effective.
core vent? Is that what you mean?
So there's dozens of kinds. Most of them, modern ones, are some kind of fibrous material that goes over the 2-inch wide slot in the ridge. Maybe it's 4 inches. That's 2 inches on each side, right?
I think that's right.
Put the roll vent down or this rolled material, and then you shingle over top of it. And
But he probably doesn't have any vents at the soffit.
right.
Yeah. So you might be able to cut that into the fascia, use a special drip edge that has like louvers in it. And that's a lot of work too. But
I think you should pick another project.
yeah.
I mean, if you want a project to do on the weekend, do something else.
Make it a pleasurable project.
And if there really is a problem with your attic being wet, send us some pictures, Noah, and we'll try and get to the bottom of that. But the thing to look for are thermal bypasses, air leaks in the floor. If you have can lights around plumbing stacks, pipes, you shouldn't have pipes, hot water pipes or cold water pipes in your attic, but you might have vent pipes for the drain waste vent system.
So the same principle as to why I should not open up my bulkhead when it's summertime to get air into my basement, and it's causing more moisture, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's
So,
one more question I think that we skipped.
okay. I know.
Yeah.
What was it?
The chimney chase.
Right. Thanks. This comes from Anna. Anna is in Atlanta. Anna from Atlanta. Hi, guys. This is a story of one thing leading to another. Well, most are in the construction field, I would say. When installing skylights in our living room, which required us to remove the sheetrock and insulation in the vicinity, we discovered that the ends of some of the ceiling joists were rotten, missing. This led us to notice the rotten top plate of the fireplace. We followed the damaged studs all the way down the wall. We reframed the walls of the fireplace, and I'm happy to say the framing is inspector approved. The inspector told us that he wanted to see, for future rough insulation inspection, a vapor barrier on the rock wool we used in the chimney chase. There was no insulation in the chase before, and we decided to go with rock wool over fiberglass batts, which would have had its own integrated vapor barrier, of course. Well, yes and no. They sell both. You can get fiberglass without a vapor retarder. My question is this: what should we use for the vapor barrier? I can't seem to find a clear answer online for this specific location inside the chimney chase. So why does the inspector want this plastic sheeting in there? We should start with.
Because they don't have their boo-boo together.
What?
Please explain.
That's an Atlanta term that I learned from Andre 3000 from
Get
Outcast.
out. Get out.
What are you talking about?
What is a
never
boo-boo?
mind.
It's just their
Poo-poo.
act. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. I might
Yeah.
have to use that in the future. So, what is he trying to solve?
Well, I don't know what he's trying to
I
solve
don't
because they're on the 2012 IRC. I looked all this up. They're on the 2012 IRC.
I'm
I
really
looked
glad
up-
you do all this. I
look-
appreciate it. I really do.
I looked at the Georgia amendments to the 2012 IRC. There is no requirement for a vapor retarder of any kind in walls in Zone 3, which includes Atlanta. So the IRC does require it for all the other zones, well, 5, 6, 7, whatever, and up, and Marine Zone 4, but they don't require it for 3 and below. So I don't know where this guy is coming from.
I hear oftentimes that people want to, inspectors want you to put in vapor barriers, polyethylene plastic vapor barriers, or use faced insulation.
Yeah. But my question, in this wall, wouldn't that even be on the wrong side?
So before we get to that,
Yeah.
I think he might be requiring this as an air barrier, right? Because this chimney chase has bats in it with a sheathing on the other side, presumably, but no air barrier on the interior, right? So any leaks around this fireplace, and that's inevitable, right? It's got a huge airspace to cool the chimney flue, right? Any air there is going to get through that insulation and condense on the sheathing in cold weather.
Yeah, potentially.
Right?
Yep.
So I wondered if he was trying to suggest that they need an air barrier in this application, in this part of the house, and that was his solution. And Canadians do this. They use polyethylene as a vapor or as an air barrier on the inside of their walls, and they tape everything very carefully with this red tape they call tuck tape. And it's a bona fide assembly. It seems to hold up pretty well in their climate. As far as Atlanta, I'm a little foggier on what's going on.
Yeah, because they don't. If there's no air barrier on the outside, all that hot, humid air that's outside in the summer in Atlanta is going to be leaking into those walls, and the coolest surface is going to be the backside of the drywall, and so all that moisture is going to be accumulating on the backside of that vapor barrier.
Polyethylene, yes,
and like
running down the inside
and
of the wall.
running down the inside of the wall, and rotting your floor out instead of your ceiling joists.
Anna, it's very difficult to have these conversations with your building inspector, right? So I don't envy you having to have this conversation, and I don't know that I would put up a big fight. I might put up the polyethylene and then pull it down when he left.
Yeah, maybe.
It's not a good idea.
Go to the library, check out the copy of the
Code book?
2012 IRC, open it up to section 7 or whatever it is that this is in, and have them read it. Or, I mean, I don't know.
I think a legitimate air barrier is a good idea here, right?
Yeah,
I think we need an air barrier. And there's this product called Thermoply, which is like this shiny cardboard. I think it would be ideal for inside this chimney chase. It's going to be difficult to install if you already have the flue pipe in there. Did the photo show if there's the flue in there yet?
No, it just showed the mineral wool in there.
Okay, so if the pipe's not in there, this will be pretty easy to install. You could also use sheetrock.
It's in there.
The pipe is in there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right there.
Surely is.
Sure is.
So I don't see a good solution to this problem other than to say poly is not the best thing in this application for the reason you suggest, which is that in the hot weather, you're going to have leaks from the outside condensing on this cold or cool surface. But it's not going to be as cool as the inside of the house, right?
Probably not.
Because
as long as there's not a lot of air leaking.
Yeah.
I think she should get her building inspector on the phone to call in, and you guys can share this kind of like car talk.
But the thing is, I looked at their like this is the checklist for the City of Atlanta building inspection process, and it says right in there, and it does say in the insulation inspection, blah blah blah. Inspection and after permanent roof covering has been installed with all insulation and vapor retarders in place. And there are, other places where you need vapor retarders, but not in the walls.
Never. Only the coldest places in the country and Alaska.
Yeah.
I meant to say in the continental U.S. and Alaska, but it's a difficult assembly to get correct, and arguably it doesn't do much.
Yeah.
But I hear people all the time who need to are required by their inspection entities that they have to install these poly vapor barriers.
Are code inspectors just not reading the code that they're supposed to enforce?
Matt, I don't know. And it's like this particular issue, along with the roof venting thing, just seems to be so misunderstood for at least 2 generations of builders and code enforcement, I would say.
What's the disconnect?
I don't know. I really
Reading
don't.
is hard.
It's just like the weird thing is that these things became codified through very little actual research. And if you read Bill Rose's books, Water and Buildings, you learn how completely bogus the research was that led to the requirements for attic venting and vapor barriers, right? We just didn't have a good understanding of the building. And now we have a better understanding, but yet these things are still in place in so many areas.
Well, because there's probably companies lobbying to keep it.
Right, because of all the
like the
products.
plastic makers?
Yeah.
Like Frost King?
Like all of these, there are gigantic building supply manufacturers that are probably, I'm sure, lobbying to keep a lot of this stuff in place, even though it doesn't make any sense anymore.
I don't know. I mean,
That seems like a valid theory.
Because I doubt the builders are like, I really want to spend more money on
putting plastic in this thing that doesn't do anything.
Yeah. Just so I can get callbacks. I love
For
building
soggy assemblies.
Yeah, I love building
Shop
subpar
security.
houses because code tells me to.
So that should be why we tell people not to do this, is because it prevents drying, right? In the way you want things to dry in almost all cases, right?
Right. But that's the thing. Code doesn't require it here. Code specifically does not require this barrier here. Your local code official is the one who's mistakenly requiring it.
But it seems so widespread. I just wonder if more recent code cycles still required it. Have we dug into that? I mean, I haven't dug into that.
No.
That's Matt's department. He likes to dig.
I think we should dig into that some more because it is still widely misunderstood. And Anna from Atlanta, if you can get your building inspector on the phone, we'll talk to him or her. It's got to be a him.
Why? Because he's got terrible ideas?
Because he's got bad ideas and he's building stuff wrong.
Yeah.
Well, we don't want to get research involved, right? It's like, oh, this is just what we do.
Yeah.
There's so many. I haven't met an industry where people are so sure of things that they have no idea about. Have you? I mean,
Well, I don't have a lot of experience in a lot of other industries, but
well,
yes.
you were in the military.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Well-
that seems like another example of.
That's a great example.
let's find worse ways to do things. Yeah. No. Yeah.
How about you, Jeff? What about you? Were in the broadcast business. Are broadcasters so sure of stuff that they're clueless about?
No, I don't get that feeling now.
Like other businesses you've been in?
With some exceptions, no. But, CEOs tend to know more than everyone in the world, but,
That's an ego
surgeons.
thing, and I think that might be some builder ego involved in these kind of things too. The conversations I overhear at the home center with people who allegedly know what they're doing, it's frightening sometimes. Not necessarily the associates who came from the trades, but people who are clearly in the industry. They have the tape measure on their clip to their belt. And they are with a clipboard, and they have a truck, and they look like contractors. But the stuff I hear them say, I'm just like, dude, you're really not the right person to be telling this person anything. And it happens alarmingly often.
You're depressing me, Patrick.
I just we need more training, or people need to look at the research. It's I don't understand.
That's why Mike Girton is such an inspiration.
Yeah,
Because
and he's the first, and Andy Engel, I would agree, is similarly they came to Taunton Press and Fine Homebuilding with certain ideas about how homes should be built. Andy recently in a piece he wrote for the web said, when Bill Rose was talking about sealing up crawl spaces and not venting your attics, he's like, I thought that was heresy, and I later dug into it and realized, well, no, this makes sense because there's research to say this is the better way to do it. But there's so many people who are unwilling to change their methods just because, I don't know why, they just won't change. They just don't, they're not interested in hearing it.
Yeah.
And I think that's sadly the norm in the industry, not the exception. You don't know what to say because it's I'm on a tear, and you're just I'm letting him go.
Yeah, do it. Take him down, Patrick.
Anywho,
You always end on such a cheery note.
your shed looks great.
It does.
Yeah. So you gonna build a woodshed next?
I have no need for a woodshed. I closed up my fireplace. I capped
Does it
it
appeal
off.
to you? Heating with wood at all?
It does. But
A fireplace is not the way to heat with wood. We say it over and over again.
Yeah,
it's
fireplaces-
worse than
Yeah. I mean, it's just a nice decoration on the wall right now. That's
Yeah.
about its only function.
Do you put candles in there like Martha Stewart?
No, I've actually got, when I lived in that tiny little schoolhouse, that place was so cold, and I got this little fake wood stove for supplemental heat. And
So
I
this electric thing?
Yeah, this little electric thing, and I stuck that in the fireplace.
Classic.
So why were schoolhouses cold? Like, did they think that kids were going to perform better and stay awake? Or, like, did they want to
Their
punish
hou-
the teachers?
I mean, the houses these kids lived in were also uninsulated.
Sure. Everyone's house was cold in the turn of the century.
I mean, there was a wood stove in there in the basement.
why New
Or not the
Englanders are so
basement. There was a
grumpy.
wood stove, though, and that's probably what kept them warm.
I bet it was some kid's job to, like, go get the fire going every morning or put wood in it or
You would have
throughout
been
the
that
day.
kid.
Oh, yeah. If it would have meant, like, being out of class and doing anything else than studying or being a student. Yeah.
Yeah.
Playing with hatchets and
Totally. I'd been down there all the time, like checking all the pipes and turning the valves and, creating all kinds of havoc.
Yeah.
What's this do? I was, when Addison was on the recent show with Mike,
Yeah.
he was saying that, like, he never really got into to school but loved, working with his hands and stuff. And I was just like, God, that was so me.
I hear that. It seems like you hear that from builders in general a lot of times.
Yeah.
Or
It's just like I
tradespeople.
so wanted to be doing something, not sitting in a classroom.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah, and hearing him, like, he was into dirt bikes and being outside and all
Yeah.
that stuff, like, that was like kids of a previous generation, like,
But
when
he's
we
much
grew
younger.
Up. Yeah, and he's much younger, so, like, hearing someone of his age not say, I
unusual.
love video games.
Right. As
It's kind of
refreshing.
refreshing.
Yeah.
He was not into electronics at all, as I heard,
Yeah,
as I took it.
yeah,
How old is he? 22?
50. No.
I don't know how old he is, but my guess is he's probably 18 or 19.
Oh, okay.
Or 20. He's
Yeah,
not.
somewhere in there.
He's a millennial.
He's a graduate. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So he'd be at least 18, right?
yeah.
I loved watching Mike talk with him and just really respect him.
I had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was certainly interesting to hear the two perspectives from someone who's new to the business and someone who's been in it for almost ever. So
It was funny hearing him talk about, like, the evolution of tools. Addison talking about that. It's like, you don't know what you know. I don't know what I know. I haven't been in this that long. Like, I haven't been doing this when there was ever a time where you didn't
Contrasting
have
with Mike-
battery-operated
Mike's
circular
guys,
saws.
whose cordless saws were cordless because they had a handle on them.
Right, exactly.
Big fat teeth.
Yep.
Did you like school, Jeff?
I had a mixed, depended a lot on the class.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What classes did you like?
Science classes, some English classes, depending a lot on
The teacher. I like science classes too.
Yeah.
Did you do well in math?
For most of my career, yeah.
I remind people that I took a communication undergraduate program because it didn't have any math requirements.
Yeah, my wife did that too.
Yeah.
Do you not do well in math? That surprises me.
I never wanted to do the work. I think I would describe I have a pretty mathematical brain,
Yeah.
but like I didn't want to like do quadratic equations and like I only passed trigonometry because I did all the homework, right? Like that you couldn't fail if you did answered all the questions on the homework. They didn't even have to be correct, but
Give me
it was
that
like
test.
so
I could have failed it.
it was, and that would be useful for me now.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a lot of building is based on triangles and the relationships between, their length and angles. And you can find out just about anything. Yeah.
Rob was trying to share some of that when he was building the shed, and whoosh,
Oh, something other
Right
than like
over
the
my head.
Pythagorean theorem? Really?
I struggle. That's why I'm an editor.
I didn't know Rob was good at math.
Well, he showed me some cheating that he does with his tape measure.
Like what?
Like skips math and just uses his tape measure. I don't know. He's bending it all around and coming up with answers.
He does that a lot. Comes up with answers. Well, I think that's all the time we have for today. Am I missing anything, Jeff?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. I got to get to the... You'd think I'd have this memorized by now. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks to Matt, Kiley, and Jeff for joining me, and thanks to all of you for listening. Please remember to send us your questions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com, and please like, comment, or review us however you're listening. It helps other folks find our podcast. Thanks all, and happy building. Keep craft alive.